Hi, I'm Crystal, and today we're going to be making this fun faux marble embellishment. I appreciate you joining me today. This is part of Wednesday Embellies, hosted by Fashionably 50-something. So this embellishment is made of tissue paper with a little bit of embossing, and I just thought this turned out so well for the humble materials, and it was so easy to do. So let's walk through these steps. I started out inspired by this mold that I saw at Dollar Tree, and it is a silicone coaster mold. Now I am sure that the intent for this mold is for resin projects. I really loved the sample photo that came on the packaging, and that certainly looks like a resin project to me, but I don't do resin projects, I do paper projects. But I do have tissue paper, and I just love the way that this turned out. I think it really looks reminiscent of that sample photo and a little bit like brilliantly colored rock with this ribbon of metallic running through it. So I started out by getting the mold out and then getting out some colored tissue. The tissue I'm using I've had in my craft stash for years. It was a Hallmark product originally, and I bought it at the 99-cent only store. So I guess for some reason they couldn't sell this pink and orange patterned tissue paper at Hallmark. Started by misting the mold and then putting the tissue in and then getting just some regular school glue. And I put the school glue in, thinned that out with a little water and brushed it on and just built up my layers. Ultimately, I believe it was 9 layers of tissue, and the tissue was cut into sixths. So 3 sheets of tissue was enough to make 2 projects. I did not have glue between every single layer of paper, and I don't think that led to any ill effects of my project. The tissue stuck together quite well without glue between every single layer. And I just used the water and the glue and kept patting that tissue paper into the mold. Now this was by far the easiest paper mache project I've ever done because I didn't cut any shreds. I just folded up that overhang into the back of the mold. So the tissue paper is so easy to manipulate, and the mold is a generous size that I just kept folding it in and gluing and watering and folding it in until I had folded everything inside the mold, and it easily fit inside, and it made a nice compact layer in this mold. Now I could have let this dry overnight, but I am impatient, so I didn't want to do that. So I stuck this into my toaster oven for an hour at 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 95 Celsius. And you really don't have to worry about these silicone molds. They are safe beyond any temperature safe for paper. So if you remember your enforced English class reading, paper is going to burn at 451 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 232 degrees Celsius, and the silicone molds are safe well beyond that temperature. Once I turned it out of the mold, I went ahead and coated it with a little bit of Mod Podge. And I will just note that Mod Podge is actually a pretty good price at Dollar Tree for your 2-ounce bottle. The regular school glue is not a great price at Dollar Tree. You can do better at almost any other retailer. Those 4-ounce bottles at Dollar Tree are pretty high price compared to Target or Walmart. But the Mod Podge is not bad. So I coated my project in Mod Podge. And after I did that, I looked at that and I decided I didn't really like the ridge. That ridge is there because this mold is meant for a coaster, but of course this project is only made of tissue paper and I have scissors, so I just cut the ridge off the edge to make a flat heart. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the ridge, I just didn't particularly care for it, so off it went. And that's one of the things I love about crafting with paper, is that really it's such a forgiving medium. I don't think you could do this if you were working with something that was a little more durable. Once I had this where I wanted it, I decided to do the embossing. And of course, the customary way of doing embossing is with Versamark ink or another sticky embossing ink. You put the sticky ink on and then you apply the embossing powder. You shake off the excess and then use your crafty heat tool to melt the embossing powder, which is basically a type of plastic. And I have to say, that never gets old. I just love watching the embossing powder melt and turn all shiny. It just never fails to amaze me that we get to do this. So I embossed the edges of the project, and then I'm going to move on to the surfaces. The tissue paper is kind of lumpy and bumpy, and so by brushing that ink pad a little bit over the surfaces, then I've got a sticky platform to apply a little bit more embossing powder, and I can just remove any excess by shaking or with my fingertip, and then I can heat that, and I get that beautiful metallic randomness reminiscent of stone that has a metallic ore running through it. So I really liked how this looked when I got done. Just love that color combination with the metallic gold, but I am a sucker for pink and orange together. Of course, any color combination is possible. You're only limited by your imagination and the amount and color of tissue paper you have on hand. Now, if you don't have Versamark ink, I will remind you that all you need is something sticky for this embossing powder to stick to. And so the other thing that will work quite well with this project is using a glue stick. So the glue stick, in some ways, I think turns out better because as you heat the glue stick, the water in the glue stick kind of bubbles up, and so you get a really interesting kind of hammered look to the embossing powder. So it works on the edges, and it will also work on the surfaces of the project. Just rub the glue stick over your project and then apply the embossing powder and heat with your crafty heat tool to melt that embossing powder. So I thought this was a fun little project. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with these tissue paper embellishments, but I think that they will be something fun this Valentine's Day, and really like the look and how these turned out. I hope you have a wonderful crafty day. Thanks for joining me.